Thanks, Alistair. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak today. It's great to be here. I'm the Sustainability and Climate Change Director at Tesco. We've got quite a broad-based strategy on reducing climate change. I'm going to focus on customers today. I heard some really interesting information, and I think some of the things you'll see from me later, there'll be some really obvious gaps on what we don't know, particularly given what Jeff talked about. Before getting on to that, the first thing I just wanted to say and remind people of is, for Tesco, and most people in this room, Tesco is the shop round the corner, but we're bigger than that. We're operating in 13 countries. This is a challenge and an opportunity for us. Customers in different countries do think about things differently. They care about different things. But as you'll see as we go on, there's a surprising degree of similarity between many of the things that customers care about. But it does certainly raise challenges for us in terms of how we find ways to communicate with customers and get them to do the right thing, because they can be very different and respond to very different signals. So why are customers important? I think a lot of people think about climate change and the challenge of climate change and think about big industry, energy industry, manufacturing, steel, aluminium production, that kind of thing. But customers, as we can see here, are directly responsible for 35% of the UK emissions. These are UK figures, but they're good CBI figures, so I think they're quite useful to use. So heating, electricity, driving your car, that's kind of driving a large part, over a third of the emissions in the UK. If you then extend out to what people buy, what people consume, what they eat, another 25% of that figure is directly responding to customer demand, so agriculture, retail, wholesale. Those are all sectors that are being driven by direct customer demand. And even some of those others, that 40% is driven by what people need. People manufacture things because people want to buy them, and so a large part of that is also ultimately driven by customer demand. So you've got to think about customers, otherwise you won't solve the problem. So what do customers say? These are just some figures that are a snapshot of some research done in Thailand, which show that climate and global warming are of great concern to 64% of the population. Now, what we do as a business, because our business is all about the customer, it's about understanding what they want, what they need, what they'll buy. We do huge amounts of research to understand what our customers need, and we go out and talk to them on a very regular basis about what they care about, what kind of things they not just want to buy, but also, how they're feeling about issues around family, environment, etc. So they give us that feedback, and this is one of the examples of what we get back. What I always say when people ask me about what customers care about at the moment, they do clearly care about the economy more than anything else. Jobs and income are the really big overriding driver of people's lives at the moment. But the environment is still up there as a really big issue. I mean, it was 4 years ago. It's dropped down a little bit, but it's still definitely a top 10 issue across every single market that we operate in. If you look at all of our markets, you will find it a big issue. Thailand is a particularly interesting example. They are a country who are severely affected by difficult weather conditions. They've just had some really difficult floods there. That's one of the things that drives our Thai customers to be particularly concerned about this particular issue. But you'll see it a lot in many countries. And, countries like Turkey, a real growing awareness of environmental threats. And they, you can see that our customers want to do the right thing. Whole question then about whether they do the right thing, but they certainly want to. So customers say they care about the environment. The question is, what do they then do as a reality? And Jeff's talked a little bit about that. We rely very much on a bit of analysis that the SCI did and published in 2009, Consumers, Business and Climate Change. and the analysis that it gave for why consumers didn't take positive action to address climate. The first one of those was price. And some of this is about reality and some is about perception. Customers think that taking a green choice is more expensive. You know, it's paying the additional amount for the fair trade item. It's paying more for an organic product versus a non-organic product. There's this general perception that being green is more expensive and you have to pay for it. So it's a luxury rather than an everyday choice. Not having enough information was another thing. People just don't actually really know what to do. Despite, I think, sometimes what feels like immense amounts of information about climate. Surprising, I think, that customers feel very disempowered here, and I think that then has to reflect back on the people giving them that information, and clearly something is not going right. Practical barriers, you know, it may be that the thing that they want to do is not that easy. It's actually more difficult to make the environmental choice. I was very struck by those poor people on their bikes in Jeff's film, In the Rain. You know, it is much easier to climb into the car, isn't it, on a day like that. And then just feeling that the problem is too big for you to solve. I mean, I think especially in the run-up to events like Copenhagen and Durban, there's this huge drive towards talking about this massive global challenge, and, you know, the seas are going to rise and the polar ice caps are going to melt, and, you know, little old me thinks, well, what the heck can I do about that? I'm way too small to make a difference. So one of the really big challenges is overcoming that and making people feel that they can really do something. So that was a bit of work that the SCI did several years ago now, very much based on sort of, I guess, Western attitudes. We've been out and asked our own customers what they think and whether they feel similar barriers. Amazing degree of similarity, actually, in terms of people feeling that these are real barriers to what they do. So this has become the sort of template for the different actions that we try and take as a business to help our customers. But, you know, also some very interesting differences. So our Czech customers really don't think it's a problem for them. The government has to fix this. I can't fix it on my own. The government's going to fix this problem for me. Malaysia, interestingly, is another market where that's what they think as well. I don't think anybody's done any analysis on why different countries think what they do, but you do get these interesting differences. And China, very interesting. You know, being green is seen as holding back development, you know, stopping your family from developing, stopping you from getting that wealth and development that you want. So a huge challenge in the Chinese market, I think, to really find good ways to communicate with our customers. And, you know, you'll get very different specific issues in markets. The Poles are particularly worried about pollution, and in Turkey, for not very surprising reasons, they're really worried about water more than anything else because of water shortages. So what are we actually doing on each of these things? So here we have an example of what we're doing in Poland. So many of you who know the UK markets will know our Green Clubcard points scheme. So this is our way of kind of economically incentivizing people. Actually, in not a very big way, a Green Clubcard point is not worth a lot of money to people, but it's a little incentive, a little driver to help people make better choices. So we've extended the Clubcard scheme out now to many of our markets: Slovakia, Turkey, Malaysia, Thailand, Korea, and Poland so far. This is Poland. And customers can earn points for buying green points for green products like the light bulbs, the low energy light bulbs here, and for reusing carrier bags. For example, in Korea, we give green points if you cycle to the store. So these are kind of interesting initiatives to help people make better choices. Now, we used Green Clubcard points in the UK on reducing carrier bags. Had a really big impact. We've just trialling Green Clubcard points for the same purpose in Slovakia, and we've seen an instant 30% reduction in the use of single-use plastic bags, which, you know, just getting that change it's quite extraordinary how a very small incentive can drive different behaviour very quickly. This is a screen screen grab from our Green Living website in China, which was set up by our marketing department there to be a way to communicate with our customers about changes they can make. I know I have one Chinese speaker in the room who's over from our Chinese business at the moment, as the rest of you probably don't. I'll just explain to you what these are. That couple sitting over there on the left-hand side, so this is a grab, this is the opening page, and then you go into the screen. So that the people on the left there, if you click on that, you can go to a little carbon footprinting tool of your own, so you can work out how your own lifestyle and the things that you do contribute to your carbon footprint. That really kind of James Bond, Dr. Drax looking place at the back there is actually the link into our greener home. So we have a sort of virtual home, and you can walk through it and get hints and tips on what you can do in the home to save energy, save what fuel you're using, save on your air conditioning, that kind of thing. There's a little bit on the right about you. There's a very big carrier bag there. That's about green carrier bags. And then we've got a section with these buses that's all about the actions that we're doing on our own activities as a business to reduce our emissions in our operations. But it's ways of finding, accessible, simple ways of communicating with customers so that they pick up messages clearly. And I'm not saying we've got it perfectly right, but I think, you can find ways, you can test ways through using this kind of website, see what works, and then adjust it accordingly. Practical barriers. One of the things that we've done, we've actually linked up with Unilever to do a big campaign. We've now done it globally across, I think, nearly all of our markets, and it's called A Better Future Starts at Home. So this is actually a very real, as you can see these nice ladies on the top left, you actually make people sort of stand in something that looks like a home environment, like their kitchen, and you show them ways in which they can take action. So washing their clothes at 30 degrees, drying their clothes on the line, that kind of thing is something that's really, it's visible then to customers what they can do to make a difference. And what we also hope it does is sort of make people feel that these steps aren't kind of insurmountable. You can do quite easy things yourself that make a difference. And then the sort of disempowerment question, well, this is one of the reasons why we as Tesco have sponsored Climate Week for the second year this year. Saving one carrier bag isn't going to save the planet, but actually we've saved over 5 billion of them in the UK, and that begins to make a really big impact. Jeff talked about his hundreds of people who he's been working with. David, I think you talked about 19 homes that you've been into. In the UK alone, we have 20 million transactions a week. If we can do the right thing and get the right message across, we can have a really huge impact. And, that's where you want to try and find the right actions that will really make a difference. So Climate Week is great because it, encourages a lot of activity, a lot of action, a lot of awareness of the issues, and that's one of the things that just helps people get over that first barrier of thinking, this is all way too difficult for me to ever be able to do anything about. So, a lot of people say, well, does it really make a difference, customers? Why are you even bothering in this space? You just decide as a big company what you want to do, and then you kind of impose it on the rest of the world. Well, I think there are two things that are good illustrations of why customers really matter and why they make a difference. In 1995 in the UK, 86% of eggs were battery farmed. Last year, 51% were free range. That's been a huge transformation in the market. And it's not been driven by government regulation. It's not been driven by us as retailers. Customers have made that choice. Every time somebody bleeps a free-range egg box through through our checkouts, they are saying, this is the product we want to buy, and we'll respond to that challenge. And then producers will respond to that challenge. Customers do have the power to change things if they make the right choices. My next example is Kodak. you know, they were started in the 1880s rather. At one point, you know, this huge business, massive market leader, huge innovator in the market, really strong and powerful brand, really strong products that everybody had in their home just about. You know, who didn't know Kodak in the 60s and 70s? That is the first digital camera ever produced, which was produced by Kodak. And because they thought it was all a bit difficult and it was going to ruin their business model, they basically just sat on it and decided not to do anything with it. They weren't thinking about the customer, they were thinking about themselves. And if you don't think about where the customer's going and what changes the customer is going to respond to and the new technologies it wants, you're going to be in big trouble. And Kodak filed for bankruptcy protection 2 months ago. And I know more, which is a bit sad, but it did make everybody play that Paul Simon song on the radio, which was quite nice. So where do we go from here and where are customers? I thought I'd end with a couple of quotes, and I think quite inspirational quotes. Paul Polman, chairman of Unilever. Unilever, you know, really put themselves out there as a company wanting to do big things on sustainability and the environment. You know, too many companies have prospered at the expense of society and nature, and what he's basically saying is customers are not going to put up with that anymore. Customers are changing. They want new and different things. And to be honest, not every customer is there, not every consumer is in this place at the moment, but the world is changing fast, and everybody talks about millennials and their attitudes. They are changing the world quite quickly. They also have the technology to change the world very quickly. Information is now being spread so quickly. If any company does anything that's regarded as bad, it's out there instantly, and the responsiveness of business to these kind of customer demands is going to have to really grow. And then this is a quote from the SCI, from the report that came out in 2009 that I talked about. You know, we need to think about customers, recognise that they want to change, and then do something about it. And with our 20 million transactions a week, we can make a really big difference. There are other businesses in the room today. They've got a huge amount of customers as well. They can make the right choices. What we want to do is to work with the SCI, work with other people in the supply chain, sometimes competitors, sometimes our suppliers, to find really good ways to communicate with customers, because that's actually only the real only way that we're going to drive change and drive a positive response to climate change. Thank you.